from our friend Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. As the evening has gone on, we're getting a little more heat distortion here than what would be ideal, but unfortunately there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do about that. That's just what it is at this time of night. Our thanks to Laura Del Zotto for a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Laura, for supporting us at that level. Really, really appreciate that. Laura says, love SpaceX, and we are so thankful for these broadcast coverages. We're more than happy to bring them to you, and support helps us make it all possible. So we're now just a little over 10 minutes away from the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 6-45 mission. 23 Starlinks on board. Getting ready to add to the more than 5,600 that are currently on orbit, according to astronomer and expert tracker of satellites Jonathan McDowell. To date, there have been 6,079 Starlink satellites launched. And again, this will be the 20th Starlink mission in 2024, now less than 10 minutes away. Yeah. T-minus 9 minutes, 17 seconds and counting. We hit it a little bit earlier in the broadcast, but because the T0 jumped, I want to go ahead and talk about the trajectory for this mission for those who may have missed it the first time around. We do have nearly 25,000 of you, so not hard to imagine that there are some who were not with us at the last go-around. Also, be sure to hit the like button to allow more folks to find this live coverage as we cruise on into the final little less than 9 minutes before launch now. Falcon 9 rocket is going to be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40, or Slick 40, over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It will send the 23 Starlink satellites on board up to the 6th shell of the SpaceX Starlink constellation, which means it's going to be flying in a southeasterly on the SpaceX drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. The other East Coast vessel was used, or the other East Coast drone ship, I should say, just read the instructions, was used for the Eutelsat 36D mission just earlier tonight. Go ahead and leave this up for folks for just a moment here, since we do get quite a number of questions about trajectory, and so go ahead and take this in for a moment. If the skies are clear for our friends in southern Florida, you should be able to get a pretty nice view of the Falcon 9 as it cruises on from Florida's Space Coast. Now about 7.5 minutes away from liftoff, about less than 30 seconds away from the start of the engine chill down sequence. SpaceX fairings splashed down in the Atlantic under the support of parachutes just a little bit further down from the map that we just showed you. SpaceX saves about $6 million with each recovery, so it's an important part of their business model and bringing down the cost of launches to be able to recover and reuse these payload fairings. They are brought aboard recovery vessels like the one you see here. Doug is the vessel that'll be used for tonight's mission for this launch. Bob, the other vessel, was used earlier today when it supported the Eutelsat 36D mission. Both ships will be heading back to Port Canaveral. In fact, this has been the fastest turnaround to date of Launch Complex 39A with the Eutelsat 36D mission. SpaceX continues to push for a more airport-like cadence as time goes on, and they're slowly but surely making their way there. This, of course, set to be the 31st launch for the company so far this year, and the 106th within the last 365 days. So SpaceX certainly moving quickly on those goals. Less than 6 minutes now to launch. We should be getting views from SpaceX and mission audio as well in about a minute. At that point, we'll be able to let you hear the sounds of the pad as the strongback retract sequence is getting ready to begin about a minute from now. Before we get to that point, though, I want to thank a few more folks for your support, which is very much appreciated. Lisa from Florida with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Lisa. XR Sue with a $5 super chat as well. Thank you so much, Sue. Austin with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Austin. Nexus FFO, $5 as well. Thank you, Nexus. One of our wonderful channel members, Nelson Reyes, gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Thank you, Nelson. Really appreciate that bit of generosity into our newest channel members.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
Be sure to thank Nelson in the live chat. And if you couldn't tell, we are joined by another voice, that is SpaceX Mission Audio. So as those callouts are made, I will endeavor to not talk over them so we can all hear those callouts as they happen. Clamp arms underneath the payload fairings are going to open up.
Strongback retract has started.
As you hear, the transporter erector is about to lean back away about 1.5 degrees from the Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up on the final 4 minutes before liftoff. Our thanks to Bernard Stote for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Bernard. Really appreciate that support. Jack Yates for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Jack, for supporting us at that level. Dr. Nick Campitelli for $2 super chat. Thank you, Dr. Nick. And I will refrain from going further into Simpsons jokes, since I'm sure that you hear that all the time and are sick of it. I empathize with Lost in Space references in my name. But Dr. Nick says, thanks watching at Jetty Park. Love this. You can see there the transporter erector reclined back away from the Falcon 9 rocket. The lights on at the crew access tower just to the right of the rocket in this viewpoint here. Of course, we saw the first time that that tower was put to use on the CRS-30 mission just earlier this month. Our thanks to Tara Prime for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Tara. Tara says that she had the Feel the Heat tickets to the Falcon Heavy STP-2 mission that launched from KSC in June 2019. And still have the parking placard for it. Amazing. Thanks for all you do. Thanks, Tara. I'm sure that was
Stage 1 lock float is complete.
A wonderful mission to watch. A call for Stage 1 LOX load complete. Closing out one of the final fueling items here on this Falcon 9 rocket. We're just waiting for confirmation that Stage 2 LOX load has wrapped up. Our thanks to Robert C. for a $5 super chat as well. And God bless Elon and all the engineers that have changed the future of spaceflight. As we come into the last 2 minutes, I want to thank just a couple more folks briefly before we put our full attention on this mission. Now, Robert Harold, channel member with a $5 super chat, saying so excited. This launch will be even more exciting seeing it in the dark of night. And to Catherine Driscoll with a $10 super chat.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that call up, Falcon 9 is now fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant, starting the process of ground gas closeouts, which is the venting that you're seeing here on your screen. Catherine says, in the memory of my father who worked for NASA and Lockheed from the early days of the space boom through the space shuttle. Well, we certainly appreciate all the work that your father did, Catherine, and all the hardworking men and women across the space industry.
Ground gas closeouts?
Both in the public and private sector. We'll come back to these live chats on the other side of the launch, but for now, as we close in on the final minute, let's focus our energy here and concentrate. Make sure we give you all the relevant information as this rocket gets ready to launch in just about 1 minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Another good call out here. Should hear the call for go for launch from the SpaceX launch director in the next few seconds.
Go for launch.
And with that call out, SpaceX is ready to lift off its second Falcon 9 rocket of the day less than 30 seconds from now. "15 seconds. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. For the second time today, a Falcon 9 rocket takes to the skies above Florida. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower at pad 40. Against clear skies, let's listen to the roar of those 9 Merlin 1D engines. Getting some great views from our tracking team. This view from Chuck Briggs. This from our own Adam Bernstein. And Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. Now approaching a minute into flight. A nominal flight so far of the Falcon 9 rocket. Call out that the vehicle is supersonic, traveling faster than the speed of sound. Rocket now passing through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. At this point, we have less than a minute left on the burn of those first stage engines. Coming up, we'll hit a few different markers in rapid succession. T plus 2 minutes, 26 seconds will hit MECO, or first stage main engine cutoff. That'll be followed by stage separation, and then SES-1, or second stage engine start. Then a little after 3 minutes, the payload fairings will deploy, exposing the Starlink satellites to the vacuum of space for the first time on this mission. We're now a little more than 2 minutes into flight. Some brilliant color from those Merlin engines. Do hear from our friend Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. As you see MECO, stage separation. And the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. And you see those events on the SpaceX feed and the delay on the right-hand side of your screen. A nice view of Florida from the second stage engine, or the second stage cameras. Coming up on payload fairing deployment in a few seconds. Nice little plume effect, or jellyfish effect, as you see those payload fairings falling away, catching the reflection of the Merlin vacuum engine. And there you see the fairing falling away in the onboard camera views. Now a little over 3.5 minutes into flight, you can still very clearly see those payload fairings glinting in Pete Karstens' tracking camera view here, as you're seeing some stars cruise by. Or rather, the second stage cruise by some stars in the background. Now coming up on the 4th minute into flight. The next event we're looking for is just about T plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds. That's when the first stage entry burn will begin. That burn lasting 23 seconds. And a note from SpaceX that both the Falcon 9 first stage and second stage are following nominal flight paths, so everything on course with this mission so far. Now a little over 4 minutes, 48 seconds into this flight. Still getting some great tracking views from Pete. Adam Bernstein also has his eyes on the second stage as well. We're now just about a minute from the start of the first stage entry burn beginning. Still hearing a good flight path for both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket as we head past 5.5 minutes into flight. Getting that entry burn set to begin at T plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds. We will try to bring you views of the entry burn from our cameras on the ground here if we can. That entry burn now underway. And our Pete Carstens has it. Well done, Pete. It looks like Adam's got eyes on it too in the tracker. This burn just about to wrap up. We see it continuing on in the slight delay from the SpaceX feed here.
Stage
1
2
entry
FPS
bar shut down.
With the conclusion of that entry burn, you can see the speedometer has been falling rapidly.
Both stages are on a nominal trajectory.
And both the Falcon 9 first and second stages continue to follow the flight path that they were intended. Now a little over 7 minutes into flight, less than a minute away from the start of the first stage landing burn.
Stage 1 transonic.
What that called the Falcon 9 first stage traveling below the speed of sound. Coming upon the start of that landing burn, less than 10 seconds from now. In real time. The time you want to be looking for the visual, though, is at the bottom of your screen. So again, T plus 8 minutes and 4 seconds. Now less than 10 seconds away on the SpaceX feed.
Stage 2's in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there we go. Drone ship views should be coming into play on the right-hand side of your screen as well momentarily. There we go.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
With the legs extended, we have a touchdown.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Slight wobble there, but it appears to be a good landing of this Falcon 9 first stage booster. Tail number 1067 in the SpaceX fleet, landing for an 18th time.
MX shutdown.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with that call for a good parking orbit, the Falcon 9 second stage will remain in this coast phase until T plus 54 minutes and 3 seconds, when there will be a quick 1 second burn of that Merlin vacuum engine, setting it for Starlink satellite deployment at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 12 seconds. And so far, we are on track for our first 2 missions, both aces so far from Florida's Space Coast. Good launch, good landing from Pad 39A and Pad 40. Of course, we will hold off to declare full victory on this one for SpaceX until they're able to deploy those Starlink satellites, again coming up in just about an hour, a little less than an hour at this point. But moving along well towards a planned triple header tonight. 2 for 2 so far, and aiming for a third from California with a liftoff set currently for 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 0230 UTC. They do have back